about DAX. We started DAX last 2 Sundays before we had our little quiz last week. Today is about row context. And there are two concepts that we are going to talk about in DAX, row context and filter context. When we say row context in DAX, it means anything that has to do with row by row evaluation of a calculation. That is when you are writing a calculation, right? Anything that has to do with row by row, that's the evaluation has to be on a row by row basis, is what we call row context, right? And there are two ways that row context can happen in Power BI, right? There are two ways that row context happen in DAX. Number one, when you create calculated columns, right? And I'm sure you understand all mean by calculated column. That is, you are creating an extra layer of column that is different from that did not come with the data originally, right? You are creating a new column, by the virtue of different reasons, right? Now, when you create a new column, right? Now, the evaluation of that your DAX expression is on a row by row basis on a table, right? Now, row context happens by default when you create a calculated column because it evaluates the results on a row by row basis. So you will see that you see me just mentioning the word row by row, row by row. When in a table we have rows, right? And we have columns. You understand what rows mean, you understand what column means, right? Now, when you now create a calculated column, maybe for example, you have a quantity column and you have a price column, and you now want to get a total sales column, right? Now, when you create that new column by multiplying quantity and price, it will go to every row. So, if you, for example, if under row one, what you have is 5 quantity, and you have the selling price to be 10, that is 10 times 5, that's 50 for the sales. Now, when you go to row two, the figures might be different, right? Now, when it's returning the answer for you, right, for that new column that you just created, it's going to return the right answer for each row. It's going to go row by row. So 10 times 5, maybe row 2 is 20 times 10 or whatever. You will not see the result of the 20 times 10 in the 5 times 10, right? Every row, right, will be evaluated and they will get their own results row by row, right? And the result will display row by row in the correct order, right? Now, another way that row context occurs in Power BI or in DAX is when we use iterators, or some people call it iterating functions, right? The likes of your sum x, average x, min x, max x, count x, your filter, it's also an iterator, calculate table, all right? When you have things like add columns, right? When you are creating a calculated table based on a particular condition from an existing table. So we are going to explore the all these iterators, and you will see how they can cause or can bring about row context in Power BI or in DAX, right? I hope I'm clear with the definition. Do we all understand the definition of row context? If it's not clear, please let me know. Anybody? Okay, so I assume that it is clear. Now, let's talk about the first one, which I mentioned, which is the calculated column, right? So if you look at my screen, you will see that I have three columns there. I have the product column, I have the quantity column, and I have the price column. Now, if I want to create a new column, like I said earlier, total sales, right? What I'm going to do is to what? Is to multiply quantity by price. So I'll multiply the quantity column with the price column, right? Now, when I create that new column in my table, so what will happen is that there will be a row by row evaluation, right? It will calculate the results row by row. So the first row will be like 2 multiplied by 3, and I will see the result on that row to be what? To be 6. The second row, which is banana, will multiply 5 by 1, and I will have the results as 5. right, in my new column, in my sales column, right? Now, that is exactly what we mean by row context. That is what it means that DAX would do the math for you, one row at a time, right? Okay, so let's go and practicalize it. Let me bring in my Power BI desktop. Bring in my Power BI desktop. Let me know if you can see my Power BI desktop. So last week we talked about aggregators. I have that one on one tab here. This is about iterators. So this is about row context rather. Don't know just iterators, sorry. So I have my sales table here. And I know, yes, I already have my sales column, but let's just assume that I do not have my sales column, but I have my quantity and my unit selling price. And I want to get the sales column, right? How am I going to do that? Why am I having this one here? Let me delete it. Sorry. If you have a noisy background, please can you mute? Olubumi, can you mute yourself, please? So I'll come here, I'll right click and say new column. I'll say new column, and I will call it new sales. New sales equals to, let me try to expand. Oh, what did I do? I'm trying to expand this so you can see it clearly. Okay, good. So I will now say the unit selling price. You see that the unit selling price as a column is coming together with the table, right? So this is very important because what if you have several columns in different tables that bear the same name, right? The column name is the same. So you have to make sure you are picking the right table together with the column name. So the unit selling price multiplied by what? By the quantity. By the quantity, sales and quantity together. And I press enter. I press enter. Now you will see the result. Now you will see that this 10 I'm getting here is as a result of the 2 multiplied by 5, right? The 220 that I got here is the result of 4 multiplied by 55. It means that, for example, what will happen is that you will not see 220 appear where they're supposed to be, where we are supposed to have 10, right? There is no miscalculation. It's evaluating the results on a row by row. I hope that's clear to us, guys. So this is an example of how row context occur in Power BI when you are writing DAX. Calculated column, row by row evaluation. Is it clear to us? This one is very simple. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
So anytime you create a calculated column, doesn't matter whether you are multiplying something or whether you are dividing or whatever you are doing, anything you are doing, right? So far you are creating a calculated column. That is row context has occurred because anything row context has to do from the word row, it has to do with row by row evaluation of your results. Okay, so that is that. Now let's go back to my slide and let's talk about the iterators. So iterators too is the second major way row context can occur in Power BI DAX. So now these are examples of iterators. Sum X, average X, mean X, max X, which one again? Count X, rank X, filter, right? Filter, calculate table, and add columns. So we are going to, look at everything here. Everything. I mean everything. We are going to look at. So let's start with the sum X. How does the sum X work? If you have used sum X before, please can you just say hello or hi in the chat section? If you have used sum X before, just say hi or hello in the chat section. I've not seen any response yet. It means that nobody has used sum X. Okay, so let's start with sum X now. So how does sum X work? I told you that iterators, they do row by row evaluation, right? So let's go to my Power BI desktop again. and we are going to see how the sum makes. Now, let's assume this is scenario. We always talk about performance, that we want to make sure that our report is well optimized, blah, 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 and all those things, right? And we now suggested, or it's not just suggested it, that's the standard. There's now different suggestions when it comes to optimization, that we should always reduce the number of calculated columns that we are creating, because it's adding more, it's increasing the size of data model, which we don't want to. That if possible, we should just create measures, more measures, rather than creating calculated column, which is good. Now that's where the iterator comes in now in this context. Now it happens that in the example of the summits that I want to show you now, it happens that you don't need to actually create this new sales column before you can get the total new sales, right? It means that, for example, let me delete this new. So before I even delete, let me first do something. Let's see, let's first see the total new sales. The total. Let me just do what we call implicit measure. Let me just drag it inside this card chart. And we can all see that it's 128,000, right? Okay, good. So and now I want to delete that column, right? I want to create the new sales measure without having to create the new sales column first inside of my sales table. So I'm going to come to the I'm going to come to also I'll still be on my report canvas here, and I will just click on new measure, and someone said they can't see my screen. Can you all see my screen, guys?
Yes, sir.
See it.
Please, maybe you should log in and log out. I'll be log out and log in. I don't know. So I will call it total sales, right? So let's assume that here now I don't have the sales column. I only have the unit price and the quantity column. Total sales is equals to, right? Oh, I my equals 2 times, sorry. Is equals to sum x, right? Now the sum x will go to every row. If you evaluate every row, but don't worry, let's see how it goes. Sum x, then I'm using my intelligence. The next thing is I need the name of the table. Sum x sales, this is my sales table. And what is my expression? My expression is quantity in the sales table multiplied by what? Multiplied by what? The unit selling price in the sales table. And I close my brackets. So this is the logic behind this. The logic behind this is that it will multiply the unit selling price and quantity for every row in that table. Now, when it multiplies that together, it will now give me a sum of that like an hidden column that we cannot see, right? So the logic is that it will create a column that we can't see. It will multiply the quantity and the unit selling price together and give me a sum of that. Is it clear to us now? That is how the sum x function work in this context, right? So I'm multiplying two columns together, and I want you to sum the that how will I call it, that column that we cannot see. Let me put it that way, right? It will sum it up together. Whatever the result of this multiplication, whatever the result gives row by row, it will sum it together and give us this result as a what we call scalar value. So now I have this, right? So sum x open brackets my sales table. You enter the sales table first. Oh, I have one measure called total sales already. Oh, let me call this one total sales 2 then, right? And I will commit, and I will just bring in this my total sales 2, and I will see the same answer. So what we are saying is that you don't actually need to come to sales table first and first create one calculated column that will multiply unit selling price by the quantity. And when you now get that one, you will now start summing up that column that you just created. So without having the sales column, you only have unit selling price and quantity. You can get the total sales without you having to create a new column. Because what SumX will do is that it will multiply, it will go to all the rows, multiply the unit selling price by the quantity, and give you a sum of whatever the result is for that multiplication, for that row by row multiplication. Is it clear to us for SumX? If this is your first time, you can just say hello or say hi. It's your first time hearing about SumX, or I don't know. Okay. Is it clear before I go to the next one? So let me.
It is clear to me.
Sorry. Okay. Let me copy. So we are going to use SumX to do a lot of things. So I'm going to copy and paste this in the. Let me just put it in the chat section here. For those that want to practice it, I pasted it there. Now, so the work of SumX is to sum. It doesn't matter what you do in your expression here, right? In your expression here. So assuming what I'm doing is that I'm adding two columns together now, for example, or maybe I want to get profits and I have a column for sales and I have a column for costs. Is it cost, Abby? Yeah. Sales minus cost equals to profit, Abby. So let's say I have a column for cost, I have a column for sales, and I want to get my profits. So I don't have to create a column in my sales table that will first multiply the sales from the costs before now adding that up. No, I will just use SumX. I'll create a measure and I'll just use SumX, right? And I will just do that minus in my expression here. I'm still going to call the sales table as the table that I'm referring to. And I'm going to call the two columns and say sales minus sales costs. And I will see my results, like I can see check my result like this in a card chart, right? When we get to filter context, we are still going to explain a lot of things. How you can relate tables, if tables are related to each other, how you can do what is called context transition. At least you can also call in another table based on the fact that they are related and still do an expression in another table based on how two tables are related to each other, right? So we are still going to get to that, but let's just make it simple for today. So now we've gotten our total sales, right, using SumX. Now let's not assume that this same expression here that I have here, I want to get my average sales. I don't need to create a new column first in my sales table, now starting the average of that column. No. All I need to do, let me just copy this one like this. Just copy this one, and I'll click on new measure. And I'll click on new measure here. I'll just copy and paste and change it to average X, right? So I'm going to just come here. This is going to be average sales 2, average sales 2. And it's going to be the same thing. I'm just going to change this one to average X. So average X, right? Average X, and I'm going to press enter. So what will happen is that after multiplying all the row, the quantity and the unit selling price, the result of that, it will now give us the average, right, of that imaginary column that it has created, right? So to see the average X now, the average sales, I'm just going to come here and change this one to average sales 2. And now you can see the average sales. Is it clear to us, guys? So what I was trying to say here is that whatever you have in your expression here does not matter. Whether what you are doing is minus or multiplication or whatever. What SumX will do is it will sum whatever the result is. What average X will do is it will average whatever the result of your expression is, right? It will give you the average of the result of that expression. That's what will happen, right? Now let's move to the next one. Um, let's move to min and max, right? Now I can just copy this one also. So I want to know the minimum sales value for all the transactions that I have in my sales table. In that sales table, I have like 563 transactions, right? So I want to know the minimum sales amount, right? I don't need to create a sales column, just like I'm saying this morning. It's not for me to create a new column. All I need is to use an iterator, right? It saves me time and it saves me energy, and also does not increase the size of my model because I'm writing it as a measure instead of calculated column, right? So I can copy this. Let me copy this and paste this one here before I go back and change this one. So I want to know. So let me go back to my table, my sales table, and you will see that we have different transactions. We have the sales, sorry, quantity and unit selling price. And I want to multiply these two together to give me the result row by row. And I want to see the minimum sales, right, from all these 543 transactions that I have here, right? So I'm going to come here. I'm going to just copy this. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to click on new measure. I'm going to click on new measure and I will just paste it here, right? And I will say minimum sales. I know we all understand what minimum sales mean, right? Minimum sales, right? It's going to be min X, min X, exactly, right? And I'm going to press enter. So that is my minimum sales too, right? Copy and paste this one, right? And I'm going to bring in my minimum sales value here. Please, is it clear to us at all, guys? Oh, not this one. Sorry.
Yes, for me, it's clear.
Okay. Is there anyone that is not clear to at all? Is there anyone that is not clear to? Okay, I assume that is clear to everybody. So, guys, if it's clear to you, how am I going to get the maximum sales value without having to create a sales column in my sales table? How do I get the maximum sales value or maximum sales amount?
Max X. Max X.
Max X where?
Max X from the sales table. The same way this one is. The
Okay,
same way this min X is. You just change it to max X.
so max X. Okay. So max sales 2 is going to be max X, right? And I can press commit. Okay, okay. So now we've gotten the maximum sales amount by using the max X iterator. Okay, okay. Now, so this is the maximum sales amount, right? This is the maximum sales amount. Now, I want to also teach us count X, right? So don't forget what I've been saying this morning that the anything iterator will go to the table and do a row by row evaluation before giving you the aggregate value, right? Uh, let's do count X now. So now, but the count X is a little bit different in the way it works, right? Compared to the other ones. So let's try count X now. So this is my count X now. What I want to do is that I want to count, I will call it high value transactions, right? So my own definition of high value transactions is transactions that are transactions that are, that are more than maybe 1,500, or let's say 1,000 or 500 or whatever, right, is my own I value. So any transaction, any transaction that the sales amount is more than 500, I count that as high value transaction, right? Okay. So I will say high value transaction equals count x. So let me reduce this. I can see my IntelliSense. My sales table, right? Now you see that I have count x and I have table and expression. That's like it is for. So, but here now I'm not going to do an if in my expression, right? If, right? If the I can use a measure or I can just do the calculation, right? So if the what's it called? If the total sales, I can use anyone, whether total sales or total sales too. If my total sales too, or let me use total sales instead, anyone. If my total sales too is greater than 1,000, right? Then I have my total transactions here, which is the count of all the transactions I have on that table. Then return the total transaction. So let me explain what I just did here so that you understand. So this is what I did here. Oh, what is this one? Sorry, I want to increase the size of this one. Okay. So what I'm doing here is this. What I'm doing here is it should only count. So because I'm counting high value transactions, and I say that my criteria for high value transactions are transactions that the sales amount is more than what 1,000, right? Any sales transaction that the sales amount is more than 1,000 is high value transaction for me. Now I'm saying that it should only count. That means that it will go to the sales table and go and look at the table row by row, and anywhere it only counts anywhere the sales value, the sales amount is more than 1,000. Those are the rows that it will count. Anywhere that the sales value is less than 1,000, it will not count them. Right? So I'll close the bracket again. Then I press enter. Okay. So let me copy and paste this one. And I bring in my count X, the high value transactions. So you see that it's telling me that out of the 543 transactions that I have on that table, only 33 of them is high value transaction based on the criteria that high value transactions are only transactions that the sales amount is more than 1,000. Now we are not going to test this whether it is actually true or it is not true. Let's see. It's telling me 30 transactions, right? So let me go. Let me go to my table. Let me go to my table. Chidima, you have the data set already now. I've sent this one from since the beginning of the class. So I'm wondering why you're asking again. So let me go to sales, the sales column that I use there, and I'll say number filter, and I'll say greater than 1,000. Aha. Let's see if it's going to filter only 33 columns. Let's see. And I'll press OK. And what do you see here, guys? What do you see here?
33 filtered rows.
Thank you. So it's only returning 33 rows of transaction. Those are the only rows that the sales amount is more than, that means that condition is more than 1,000. That is exactly what the count text did for us here. So it's saying count the transactions. I mean, go to the table, go row by row evaluates the table row by row, right, and only counts for me transactions that the sales amount is what? Greater than 1,000. That is exactly what the count X did for me here. Is it clear to you guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, it's clear.
paste this. Okay, so that is count X. You will see that every of the iterators that I'm talking about this morning, all the iterators, you will see that sorry, Isaiah.
Can I ask a question now?
That's not
Okay,
about
continue.
agreement. You
Maybe
have to
after
wait
this.
till the class is
Yes.
done. Please write down your questions, guys. Write down your questions so that we'll have you don't want to have arguments in between. Okay, so that is this. Now let's go to the next one. Which one do we have again on the slide? Um, rank X. Let's talk about rank X2. So rank X2 is an iterator, right? So this one I will try the rank X on the what's it called? I can write it as a measure or write it as a calculated column. So let me clear all filters here. Now I'll create a new column. I want to rank this table based on the sales amount, based on the sales column. The sales amount I have in the sales column. And I will call it rank, right? And I will use rank X. Now, I'll be using rank X with another function called all, ALL. And I will explain the reason why I'm doing that. You don't forget that what I want to do is that I want to rank this table based on the sales column, right? And the reason why I'm using all is that in case there are any filter that is applied on this table, right, is going to ignore the filter, right? If there has been any filter applied on the table, it's going to ignore that filter and it's going to rank the entire table, regardless of what filter is applied on the table. So I'm going to say rank X all, my sales table, right? And it's going to be based on what? The sales column in the sales table, right? Sales column in the sales table. For the highest sales amounts, it's going to be ranked 1 and so on and so forth. So that's going to be, do we call that descending, right? The higher the amounts, the higher the ranking. So let me close the bracket here and I press enter. And I press enter. Okay, so you see now that it has ranked the row. It has ranked it row by row, right? And let me now do ascending. Let me say ascending on the right column. You see that this is the highest sales amount, 7,999.98, and it is ranked as number 1, right? The second one, 4,000 plus. So you see that the least one will be ranked 543, right? The least, this one is 0.556. That's what we got in the min X, the minimum sales value, right? So also, if we want to change the ranking order, so let's say we want it to be that the higher the sales amount, the higher the ranking. It should not start from 1, it should start from 543. So what we just do is to come in, right? The value, no, then the order. The order should be is it as let's try descending, right? And I press enter. So what will happen? What will happen? What will happen? Let's see. Okay, the descending is still returning. So the higher the amount, the lower the ranking value. Okay, let's try ascending now. Let's try ascending. Right. So this one should return 543 for the highest number. Oh, it's not doing that. Oh, it's rearranging it for me because of so the lowest amount now is not having number 1 because I changed it to ascending, right? But if it's descending, the highest amount is going to be number 1 for the sales figures. I hope the rank X is clear to us.
Very clear, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, the other ones that I'm going to talk about now, those ones too are iterators, but they are used for creating calculated table. So they are going to apply filter to an existing table. So a new table is going to be created, but a filter will be applied based on what you already have in an existing table. So we are going to talk about that now. So I have 15 minutes more to go. Let me just quickly rush the remaining parts. So let's talk about filter. Talk about filter, calculate table, and add column. So let's start with filter. So I'm going to go to a table here, click on any table here, and I click on a new table. And I click on the new table, right? And this new table, I'm going to call it sales table 2, for example, sales table 2, right? And I'm going to use the filter, say filter, the sales table, right? Filter the sales table, and only return. So this table you are giving me now is only for transactions that are more than 1,500. So I will say when sales column in sales table is greater than or equals to 1,500. And I'll close the brackets and I'll press enter. And you will see that it will return the same sales table for me, but it has filtered it down. I'm creating a new table now. But this new table, it has been filtered down only to transactions from the original sales table that are more than or equals to 1,500, right? So the filter function too is an iterator because it has gone to the sales table and looked through the sales table row by row and only returned the result based on my expression. Is it clear to you guys? It's only returning the result based
Very
on
clear.
what? Based on my expression, based on the filter I have applied, right? You see that now the same sales table that we have in the original sales table is now what we have in the new sales table 2 that we just created. But the rows that is returning is only rows where the sales column is more than or equals to 1,005. So I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to copy and paste it for you guys here. Please fill your attendance form while the class is going on. Now, that is that. Now, let's now also talk about the add columns. So I'm just going to delete this one. And I will say calculate table. Calculate table is another iterator function. It's also working like the filter. If I will still, I'm able to say it's almost the same thing, right? So the calculate table, I'll call in my table name sales, and I will use my expression. When sales, right, is more than or equals to 1,500, and I close the bracket. It's the same thing as filter, the same thing. Calculate table. It will return the same result. You see, the same thing, the table and the expression. Just those two things, the table and the expression. Is it clear to you guys? Calculate, table, and filter.
Yes, it's
Is it
clear,
clear?
sir. But I saw the intelligence showing for the calculatable is showing filter 1, meaning
You can
unlike
have
the other one, this one can have more than one
no
filter.
for the filter too, you can have several expressions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't
Should we
notice
try it
that.
out? Or maybe I'm not correct. But let's
I did
let's let's
not
try it
I
out.
did not I did not see filter 1 for that one, for the
Okay,
filter.
let's see. When
It's
sales,
just filter expression. Okay.
there's only one filter that you can apply, Abi. Okay. Let's see.
Yes.
Let's see. So that I will not just be saying what I don't know. It's more than or equals to 1,500, right? So, oh, you are correct. So I cannot have another. Oh, that's the difference between the two. Yeah, yeah. Is it clear to you guys now? So calculate and filter. Thanks you for that, Jamie. To calculate table and filter. For filter, you can only have one expression. For calculate table, you can have several filter expression. Is it clear? Okay, let's try the last one that we have on the list. Add columns. Aha. Add columns, right? So how does the add column work? You want to create a new table and you want to apply a filter to an existing table, right? So I'll say add columns. I'll call the table name sales. Now I want to what this add column will do is that you are you are um you are creating a new table from an existing table, but while creating that new table, you are also creating a new column with the new table. So a new column is going to come with that new table that you are creating. So add column sales, and I'll call the name of the column that I want to create. So I'll call the name of the column. What can I call it to? Let me call it new sales figures, new sales. Let me call it new sales amount, something like that. Right? New sales amount. Right? And what is my expression? Multiply unit selling price by what? By the quantity. Right? So what add column will do? Let me say it again. You are creating a new table from an existing table. As you are creating that table, you are also adding a new column will come with it from what you have from the original one, right? So sales table, by returning the entire table, you are creating a new column, and the name of that column is what? New sales amount. And what is the expression that will bring this new column that you are creating, adding to the table you are bringing in here? Is multiply the unit selling price by the quantity. The name of the column will be new sales amount. That's what you have in these double quotes. And you can commit this. You can commit this, right? And you will see that the sales table has been returned here, and an additional column has also been created. Is that clear to you? Row context, iterator, and calculated column. So you can bring in your questions now, guys. Thank you for listening.
I just want to ask, when you use the count, count and if
Count X.
statements, count X, yes, and if.
Yeah.
So I want to ask that, can it be applicable on the basis of different criteria?
Yes, now. You
So
didn't want to
if you
determine your
say,
criteria by yourself.
okay,
That's
okay,
just an example.
so we can use like two conditions, more than one condition, more than one if condition.
Let me confirm that. If you can use more than one condition,
Like
let me go to
how we do it in Excel. I'm just asking.
I want to see.
I think it should work. Anyway.
Something like nested if, right?
Yes, nested if, something like that.
Okay, I think you can write another if.
Mm.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to count a table row by row based on multiple conditions, I think you can do that from what I'm seeing here.
But it has to be the same table, not another. For instance, we use total sales.
If you are going to use another table, if you are going to cut another table, you have to use related.
Okay, yes, okay.
We've not gotten to that, so let us go into that yet, so that I won't confuse anybody. By the time we get to filter context and context transition, then we'll talk about all those things.
And as a
Is it
matter
clear?
of fact, I don't think this function even allows for different tables. Since if only uses column. So, and since you have called your table at the count level, so that's the only thing you can use.
Mr.
So
Jamiu, you can
yes,
bring
sir.
I can bring in another table, sir.
Using
Yeah.
related as if
Using
and it will function as VLOOKUP.
yes, but that one we call it context transition. When a row value becomes a column filter, that's what we call context transition. So I can create, I can use an iterator, right? By referencing another table, but there must be a relationship between those two tables for that to work.
Yeah.
Do you understand? If you look at one of my YouTube videos, I did a video where I was creating sales measure, and I have the price on the product table, and I have the quantity on the sales table, and I was still able to multiply it together to give you my sales.
Yes. Related.
Exactly. Yes. So I can do that. So, but I don't want to go into all those parts today because today is about just row context alone. When we get to filter context and context transition, we'll go more deeper. Olubumi.
Okay, yes, sir. My question is still on this count X. After the
Okay.
logical test, you put value resultive true to be total transactions. So
Yeah.
I want to know, is it something that it has to be a numerical value, or we can just put in, just like you said, if this is true, then return a text, something like that, like return true or return false.
Okay. What I have here is only for true. So the simple thing I wanted to do is just I want to count some transactions. So I have 543 rows in my table, and each row represents a transaction. Now I only want to count some transaction based on the criteria, and the criteria is that if the sales value for that transaction is more than 1,000, then count it. Right? So it means that when the count X,
I guess.
when it goes to the sales table, it would look at it would evaluate that this is my expression row by row. That's why it's called an iterator. It will go row by row to the sales table and look at everywhere and only count those rows where the total sales amount is more than 1,000. Do you understand? So this is not the kind of one that you say value if true this one, value if true down, value if false down one. No. You're just telling it count row, all the rows where the sales amount is more than 1,000. Simple. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, it's clear. Thank you, sir.
Any other person, any other question? Okay, if there are no questions, then we can call it a day. Thank God that today that we kept to time. So that's how we'll continue doing it going forward. 1 hour, everybody can prepare for Monday's work. See you guys. Fill the attendance form. See you guys next week, Sunday. Bye. Have a wonderful week. Thank you.
All right, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Benga.
you. Captains can stay behind, please.